Hey, aspiring consultants, you're listening to Strategy Simplified, and today we've got a special treat for you. In case you haven't heard, Bain is hiring right now for two roles, the associate consultant and the consultant role, and they need hires who can start ASAP as soon as the end of March 2025. Links in the show notes to apply, but make sure to listen to this episode where our team shares the deets on how you can set yourself up for success and avoid common mistakes that we see far too often in people approaching these Bain roles. In addition, make sure you stay tuned to our management consultant job board at jobs.managementconsultant.com or see the link in the show notes to be notified about more job postings from firms like Bain Company. Let's get into the episode.
Hi, everyone. I'm Jenny Ray LaRue. We are live. I'm excited to be with you today. We have some fun news about the Bain offers that are about to start rolling out. And our focus today is on how not to mess it up. The reason that we're hosting this call is a little bit at last minute. We actually asked Bain to come, and there were people going on vacation. They couldn't make it happen. Was to try to help out rather than answering a million questions one-on-one with a structured Q&A about what it is that you are looking for related to Bain offers. So we're going to handle this really focused on if you are applying to Bain in the next week or 2 weeks for their just-in-time hiring. We want to talk about what you need to make sure you get right. And then for those of you who might be interested in a Bain opportunity for this coming summer, for interviewing for either full-time or summer next year, we also want to help with that. So welcome to the call. I'm Jenny Ray LaRue. I'm a former Bain consultant. Bain is not officially the sponsor of our session today, but I have a lot of insight from both what we do at Management Consulted, helping thousands of people get into Bain and other companies every year, and also from the work that I did when I was at Bain. So I'm going to be a little bit direct and aggressive in the call today on how not to mess this up. And I would just want to start by saying Bain has not, for the past few years, I can remember in the last 3 years, they have not done this just-in-time hiring. It's very rare that this happens where they're like, we want you and we want you tomorrow. They would do it maybe on a targeted basis, but not at the entry level. So it's a big opportunity. That's why we're seeing a lot of enthusiasm and interest for it. This is a quote that we got from a client yesterday, right? I just got an interview with Bain. The process is moving extremely fast. Interviews are being scheduled this Friday and next Friday. So by this Friday, that means like tomorrow. So Bain is not just serious about bringing people on, but they're actually going ahead and scheduling the interviews. To get us started, I'd like for you to pop your most burning question for the session into the chat now. Like, why did you come? What do you want us to cover? And then as we go through the session today, please continue to do that. At the end, I have worked to allocate a little bit of time for those questions to make sure that for the ones that we don't respond to, we're able to nail those. In addition, Japheth can respond to a number of your questions live when we're on the call. Ask them. We want to definitely focus on that. So just to get started, in the chat, you'll see the links to the open opportunities that are at Bain right now. This is specifically for people who want to start at the post-undergrad level or undergrad level if you're a senior, if you are willing to start on March 24th or April 28th, but April 28th is the latest. So like if you're a senior, you have to be willing to start your job potentially before graduation happens. You can go to your graduation, but you still need to make sure that you're going to be there for that, right? For anybody else, if you're 1 year out of school, 2 years out of school, that's a perfect opportunity. For the consultant role, same thing, MBA, PhD, MD, etc., or 1 to 2 years out of school is what they're looking for. So, so those are, a couple of the key things. And when we say apply ASAP, like I would not wait beyond tonight to make these applications. Unless you have a really terrible resume, then I would work on refixing that resume and I would get your best resume into Bain. You do have a little bit of time for the later start dates, but you have an advantage if you apply for the earlier start date. Like Bain has work that they want to staff. They're going to have more people applying and interested in starting later. So this is kind of one of those opportunities where like the iron is hot, strike while the iron is hot and go for it. In addition, you're going to want to start casing ASAP. So if they accept you and it's anytime post Friday next week, like you're looking at max a week to prep for your interviews. So starting to case right away is going to be super critical. This is kind of reinforcing our message that we always share, which is like you should case and then apply, and then you're kind of ready to go to hone your cases at that point. But I think it's really driving that home. And then the other thing that I'm going to talk about in the session today is your fit prep. And I'm going to kind of break these down into 3 different steps. But your fit prep is essential. You need 12 stories prepped for Bain. They hire great storytellers. It's one of the notable things that's super different about Bain, even amongst the MBB. And your focus is going to be on 3 really great zinger stories. If you have no zinger stories, you're not ready for a Bain interview. All right, so let me talk through just a couple of the key pieces. Step 1 of this is the Bain application. All right, so first of all, Bain is really focused and very, very serious when they mean they only want a 1-page resume. That doesn't mean that Bain is incapable of reading a 2-page resume. It means that they don't want to, and they have enough resumes coming in the door that they will simply throw it out. So please make sure that your resume is a focused 1-page business resume that emphasizes your skills and quantifiable impact. When I say that, though, I'm going to tell you a little bit more when I talk through the resume about exactly what I mean, because a lot of you send us these resumes that would never get a second look because you tell us the granular detail of the skills that you're focused on, and you don't give us what we really need in terms of quantifiable impact, which means like you tell a story. You tell me how many people were on a team, what the problem is that you were solving, what you did to solve it, and what the results were. And that's every bullet point in every part of your resume. For Bain, they want to see your GPA and your test scores, and they need to be high. They're looking for they don't need a 4.0, and a 4.0 is not better than a 3.7, but they're looking for a 3.7. They're also looking for a 720 GMAT score, but at least a 700, and 700s on any of your standard test scores, and of course the corollary to that in the ACT. If you have time, you're going to want to reference somebody that you've already talked to at Bain. If you have no time, you're going to submit it without it. But Bain values referrals. Bain is the smallest of the 3 firms, and Bain has a very specific persona that they hire from. Those that are wildly diverse in terms of background, even in terms of personality, but they're looking for people who have what I would call a very high game factor. Somebody who's enthusiastic about their life, who completely owns what they do, and is honestly a little bit random. And so they're going to want you to have talked to somebody, and you will have an advantage in doing that. For anybody who is not applying in the snap bid round, that's going to be a huge emphasis for you. You need to talk to people with Bain, you need to vibe with them, and you need to pop that information into your cover letter. In addition, you want to make sure that you're ready for Bain's digital assessments. We do have insight on these on our platform about the SOVA and the Test Gorilla. And for anybody who's a paid subscriber or part of our student program, we have other digital assessments that are great practice for these. As far as we can see, and everything that we say again is not representing Bain. So if it's different, that just is what it is. As far as we can see this year in their evaluative process, these are part of your process, but not binary. It's not like yes or no, we're going to take you or not take you into the interview based on what's happening. They, like many firms, are testing these digital assessments to see if they can roll them out more rapidly as early screens for candidates. We recommend submitting test scores if you meet the cutoffs, right? They ask for these and they mean it when they say, please submit them. So if you meet the cutoffs, right, and JFIT has it in here, right? ACT 32, SAT 1400, GRE 330, GMAT 700. It's kind of what we at Management Consulted would recommend that you put on there. If you don't, then I recommend that you don't submit them. Okay. So when they say that they want to see them, what they really want to see are good test scores. So it's helpful for you to also know that when you go through the process. There are 3 sections on your resume, and everyone must have these 3 sections in order to be successful at Bain. They're looking for an education section, an experience section, and a leadership section. And I've emphasized 2 things on here because in the snap bid process, y'all just have to know how they think. They care the most about the folks that went to schools that they're already hiring from. So I just really want to emphasize, if you are one of those people, like you went to a school that Bain already hires from, but you either didn't get an opportunity with Bain, you didn't apply to Bain, it wasn't on your radar, those are going to be some of the first places that they look by nature. It makes sense, right? And then in addition, they're going to look for your brand name experience. So if you didn't go to a target school, then they're looking for you to have worked at a firm that they would recognize if they were reading the Wall Street Journal, that they would recognize as a potential client in their client list. So the bigger and the more corporate the firm is, and I'm sorry, I have nothing against any firms that aren't corporate. I read a non-corporate firm, but the brand name firms are the ones that are going to make your resume stand out. And we're going to want to have you emphasize those. So one of the things that we see as a big mistake is that people put either more recent, which makes sense, but also more what they would consider to be relevant experience inside their experience category when it's entrepreneurial, et cetera. We put those into your leadership categories because the leadership is like a bonus category, but the qualifiers are pedigree and brand name. Will Bain accept you if you don't have those? They may, especially if you follow our other rules, which is like you have great test scores. So if you have a perfect test score and you went to a non-target school and didn't work for a brand name, they will still consider you. So you just have to recognize that anything that you don't have on their hot list is an area where you have to make up for it in some other category. For those of you that are not applying in the SNAP bid, you're going to want to make sure that you really balance these things on your resume. And if you are not sure about your resume, send it to us and we will tell you yes or no. You need an edit before you send this in. Like we'll tell you from our perspective, we only have interest in you being successful. And so we will tell you like this is ready or this is not ready. But we need you to do that ASAP because we want you to have the maximum amount of time if you do need an edit. The education needs to include your pedigree. Bain loves quantitative degrees, but out of the top firms, they are the most open to non-quant degrees. So if you're a religious studies major, please apply. Right? They would love to hear from you. I had a religious studies major, a politics major, a political science and psychology major. I had engineers. Like we had people from all kinds of different backgrounds in my incoming class at Bain. They do care though a lot about GPA and honors. Y'all are in a SNAP bid, you're not getting in if you don't have a strong GPA. So it has to be over 3.5, just like hard cutoff. Everything else is just honestly very likely not worth applying unless you're far enough away from those. You're going to want to take different channels and you're going to need a networking experience. The experience, they're looking for analytical ability. Like your job is analytical at Bain. It's not only analytical, but they're looking for analytical ability. So they need to see that you've worked in these kind of programs. Excel is kind of table stakes, right? But definitely other like generative AI programs are helpful as well. Business understanding, that you have worked in business context and that you've operated with distinction, that if you did an internship, you got an offer to return. Bain is not insecure. They want to know that you're the best of the best. Those are the people that they're looking for. In addition, for leadership, right, people, budgets, and impact, they're really looking for you to have managed those three things. Leadership is really classified as opportunities where you often weren't paid or graded to do something. You're demonstrating your ability to lead without formal authority. And professional-ish experiences where you kind of like used a laptop and met in a meeting room are the types that definitely play super well on a resume. Let me actually just say one final thing. Like the spice on the cake, but not the thing that gets you in the door only, is your interests at the bottom of the page. There in our resumes, we do have a personal section that is the final piece of every resume, and that includes your languages and maybe some community outreach that didn't merit an entire entry. It can include published papers for our PhDs. But there's one last line, the interest line. Y'all want to be maximum spice in that line, right? So tell me that you love chocolate tours and you've done 6 in different places of the world. Tell me that you love food, wine, travel, sports, anything like artistic and interesting that would open up a conversation, the thing that you might like chat about with somebody on a plane. That's the kind of level that we're looking for, but we're looking for maximum spice in that area. If you don't know what spicy is, that's where you're going to want to get help, get an edit.
Does your resume pass the 7-second test? That's right, your resume has just 7 seconds to make an impression on a recruiter. So that means your resume needs to be amazing, it needs to be killer, it needs to be fully optimized. So it does what it needs to do, which is to convert your interaction, your impression into an interview. Don't leave your future up to chance. Work with a management consulted resume and cover letter editing team to edit your application docs today. Our team works tirelessly and meticulously to look at every single letter, word, number, line, bullet point, and section on your resume so that it's optimized for consulting so you can maximize your opportunities. Work with us today via the link in this episode's show notes. Fun fact, over 80% of editing clients land at least one interview with their transformed docs. We'd love to work with you. Again, check out the links in the show notes to learn more and purchase today. Hey, Strategy Simplified, are you ready to land your dream consulting or corporate strategy job? On the Management Consulted job board, we've made it easier than ever to do just that. Create your free job seeker profile today and instantly unlock access to hundreds of top-tier job opportunities, all at no cost to you. Don't wait. Start your journey towards your dream career now through the Management Consulted job board. Your future in consulting is just one click away. Find the link to create your job seeker profile at the link in this episode's show notes.
Japheth, any questions about the resumes, or you want me to kind of roll on through 3 of them and then go to all questions at the end? You tell me.
We can take some questions now.
Great. Hit me.
All right, let's
Hit me with the
one
questions.
question about the cover letter. Yeah, when you said talking to current Bainies, should we call out names specifically, like add their names into the cover letter?
Their name and their office and their position, right? Because like you're often applying, but also if you're going to call out somebody in the cover letter, like I would really recommend that you pref that office where that person is, because the team that's looking at them, the interview is going to be passed down often to the office levels, and so it's going to make a difference. If you're kind of like, I talked to this person in Chicago and I'm applying to Miami, it comes across a little bit weird.
Yep. All right. Where on the resume can you highlight like consulting club project experience and case competitions?
Yep. 2 places, either inside the leadership section. That's a very common place where we'll put those. Depends a little bit on the space though. If we need to truncate it, we would actually put it often up under your education experience if you're currently in school. So we would put like a bullet point for case competitions and we'd highlight something there. Doing them is fine, but it's spice, not central, right? So having that in there is great.
Mm-hmm. Our last one, and then we can move on. Do they still need GPA and test scores for experienced hires who haven't been in school for several years?
Yes. But often these are not going to be the right positions for you, right? Because they're looking for, you at least have to be able to accept the comp if it is the right position. The ones that they're really looking for are like a woman who went to a business school that they already hire from and then like went to work for GE or Oscar Health or some other organization and is like looking to pivot over into consulting. So the longer that you've been out of school, the further away from the likelihood that this is the right position for you to apply for. There are lots of positions at Bain. They are often looking for lateral hires in the manager level. What we're really focusing on is this very unusual anomaly that they're hiring at the most junior levels in an off-cycle period. Let me move on to case interviews, Japheth, and I know you'll handle some of those other great questions that came in the chat. But step 2 here is for the case interview. For the case interview, our main focus is making sure that y'all are ready for what it actually takes to succeed at Bain, right? And like everything that I'm going to tell you is you can just fill in the blank for Bain and for McKinsey and for BCG. There are minor tweaks at the end of your casing process, but if you're great at casing and great at casing for Bain, you're probably going to be great across the MBB. In fact, Katie Neff, who is our VP of Consumer Experience, is the person who is on this call who can handle a lot of the questions for y'all related to the case, related to firms. If you have questions about doing our black belt program where you have 8 sessions with a coach, Katie can help with those. She is here right now to answer questions. And then afterwards, if you need a quick call with Katie, she'll pop at the end of the session a link for her calendar if you didn't get your questions answered during the session. So Katie is like the case interview maestro. Katie actually went through the management consulted program as a black belt, got an offer, went to BCG, and is now back on our team. So let me just run you through a couple of these things. I've emphasized three of them, but I'm going to run through them in kind of full scope. So the first thing is that for the case, the most important part for any MBB interview is not the structure or the math, it's the opening. It's how you lead into it. That's where we decide whether you're of the caliber that the firm is looking for. Okay. So the case and objective clarification is really where great candidates begin to distinguish themselves. They start to ask questions that are about what they missed, which is fine, but also about the business model. The great questions about the business model always zing in the beginning, and clarifying questions, narrowing questions about the scope of the case. People who are asking informational questions, questions that are asking permission, don't vibe with this kind of like very strong, advisory personality that the top firms are looking for. So the case and objective clarification is kind of all important. And for Bain, I really called that out. Like we would tell a huge difference between people who were zinging on the questions and people who weren't. The grand pause in the game plan, when you take your time to come up with a structure, we are looking for you to present it with confidence. So a lot of people come up with a structure, but not a structure that they're willing to like kind of die on the hill with. And it comes across as like weak-willed when you're presenting it. So Bain is looking for that like very fervent presentation for your game plan. Hey, here are the things that I would recommend that we look at. And Bain is looking for you to nail one thing specifically inside your game plan. When I'm talking about that, I'm talking about your 4 categories and your 3 data points. At MC, we advise that you have a 4x3 for every case. The other thing that I'm looking at is not just that you have one, but that you have one that's going to work toward the case. And one of the things that we're looking for is that you prioritized your number 1 category. So Bain talks about a hypothesis-driven approach. The way that you message that is that you identify what it is that you want to emphasize. And if you only have time to do one thing, what the thing is that you're going to focus on. So Bain looks for that focus. When I went to Bain, they promised me that I would do less work than at McKinsey, but I would get paid the same. I was like, sounds pretty great, right? And so honestly, this game plan is the place where they determine who the people are who are going to be razor focused with what they do. Then the third piece is quant questions and specifically exhibits. Bain does a lot of quant cases, but the quant cases are not usually verbal math. They do a ton of exhibits inside the cases. So if you have not prepped for exhibit work, you're going to want to speed up on that really quickly. In addition, at MC, we have a 10 kind of part case matrix, which we have divided our case library into. For all of our student partners, you have access to our case library. For those of you that don't have access, these 10 cases are mirrored in our free case prep plan, which David is going to pop into the chat in just a second. I just wanted to call out that when Bain again says that they have a hypothesis-driven approach, that means that the cases that you are likely to get are the cases that demand hypotheses. Bain really emphasizes clear cases, not these like wild creative cases like BCG. BCG cases are the hardest. Katie, I think you would probably agree, right? Out of the cases, they're the hardest. BCG people are the smartest. Bain people are the laziest in a great way, in a strategic, genius, like focus way, right? And McKinsey people are by far like the most thorough, the most kind of academic and clean in their approach. So for Bain, what that means is that like we're going to give you cases that we want answers to. We're going to say like, should we move to Mexico? Yes or no, right? Should we enter this market? Yes or no? Should we buy this company? Yes or no? So those 4 cases that are highlighted with what we call closed hypotheses are yes or no questions. Those are going to be overemphasized in the mix of cases that you get at Bain. In addition, if you don't prep for M&A cases, you're not ready for a Bain case. M&A we consider to be the hardest of the business types that you have to look at, but Bain has the largest M&A practice of the 3 firms, the 3 top firms, and it's a large portion of their work as well. And so you're going to likely get an M&A case when you're working at Bain. Their private equity practice is robust. You're going to want to be ready for that. Specifically, Japheth has a free case prep plan. It's free to everyone, not just to our black belts and subscribers and our student partners. You can use it to work through it. It is linked to paid resources. So if you are a student, a black belt, etc., then it is linked to the resources that you already have access to. If you don't have access to those resources, talk to your school and work to get resources, or you can buy those resources from us. They are all all included in all of our black belt programs, which also include our super prep process. The 28-part step-by-step plan, like my team feels a little uncomfortable when I say this, but I'm like, if you do this in the way that we tell you to, which is cases out loud, all the way through the 28 steps, I feel like I can pretty much guarantee you a first round pass. I can't get you an offer because that's honestly more on just you, your stories, your background, like your connection with the interview. But I can answer the question for them. Can you do a case interview? Yes or no? So I would say don't follow this to your peril. And for those of you that have a week, like you're doing 4 of these in a day. For those of you that have longer, get your butt in gear. Like, let's go, right? Because it's time to get this started. You can flex it to your timeline, but the more time you have, the longer you have to probe into weak areas and the less you have to kind of like put it together with duct tape. The third step, which is my last step, and then I'll take David's final questions, is the fit interview. The fit interview at Bain is a massive part of your final score. In fact, some partners are just like, we could do a case, but we don't have to. The first round is the case, y'all. You have to pass the case. If you don't pass the case, you can't do the job. You can't get an offer. The second round is like, of everybody who passed the case, who do I most want to mentor? Who do I want to spend the most time with? Who am I going to be involved in these projects with? And so you want to prep stories. You need to be ready to tell them in executive fashion. And I think Bain preps you for this incredibly well. They're focused on speed, right? And so again, if you tell me a great 5-minute story, I'm not going to hire you. The stories have to be great and 1 minute. They need to be succinct, direct, vibe. I've like mentioned vibe a lot on the call. They need to be from diverse experiences that you had. Bain is really looking for me to be like, I'm going to parachute this person in. McKinsey is so much larger than Bain that they have the luxury of specializing you a bit more. Bain is like, you have to be good at everything. I'm super sorry. Right. And so they need people who have wildly diverse backgrounds and experiences so that they can create that parachuting process. Direct questions, phenomenal, right? Make sure that you have these like great answers prepared for direct questions like, why do you want to work at Bain? What office do you want to work in and why? Why consulting? Yes or no? Tell me the process that you went through, and also just walk me through your resume. Give me your background. Story questions are like, tell me about a time, usually involving something negative or high in conflict. Right. And then tricky questions are around things like, why should we not hire you? What is your greatest weakness? What's a great failure that you had? Or why should we hire you? Bain is very commonly asking questions like that. They're just like, hey, if you can't put this together, you're not going to be a dynamic part of a sales process. And that's the last thing that I'm going to say before I kind of turn it over to Japheth for a final few questions. Bain is looking for people that they feel like can consistently sell their brand. I feel like a lot of people miss this when they focus on the fundamentals of cases. What they're looking for are people who, when you walk into your next recruiting interaction, people walk away and they say, gosh, I'd love to work with Bain. When you walk into your next work interaction, they say, goodness, like that would be my number one company. Bain cannot compete on size, so they have to compete on other elements. And that kind of X factor is a part of that. Japheth over. Let me just say this thing. We want to work with you, but we need you to, if you're working in the Snap bid, to get on it. We have resume and cover letter edits. We can do 4, like between right now and the end of this weekend. If you need expedited turnaround, 48 hours per round, we'll turn it around as fast as we can for you. But it's an extra $150 for both resume and cover letter, but get it in pronto. We'd really recommend that you get started with that. Black belt is for anybody who wants to prep in a systematic way for these interviews. We have a cohort that ends next week. There are 10 spots left for that. And that includes 8 hours and our full digital pass. And then for those of you that have until the summer, I would recommend that you jump into our super prep process. You can do either 20 hours plus a strategy sprint, or you can swap a strategy sprint for extra hours. So we would love to work with you. And the QR code on this page will help get you to where you need to go. In addition, if Katie didn't get to answer your questions in the chat, Katie, if you want to pop your booking link in the chat, that'd be great. Japheth, what questions do people have?
Awesome. Let's start.
This chat is fire, man. This chat is fire.
It's blowing up. Yeah, me and Katie have been busy. It's great. It's great. All right. How long should you take on a tell me about yourself question in the interview?
2 minutes. 2 minutes. And it really does need to be tell me about yourself, not walk me through your resume. Like y'all do not want to refer people to a piece of paper. You want to tell a story. So you need to start off the resume. You need to build in some great like educational, here's why I did it, here's what I loved about it. It needs to be pretty hype, pretty positive. And it definitely needs to end not with why you want to do consulting or why you want to work at Bain. It needs to end with here's what I'm looking for next to this as the next step of my career.
Love it. Okay, let's go to YouTube. Hey, Kyle. Let me see. Okay, applied to the New York office for this opportunity.
Boom. Well done, Kyle.
He's in Toronto. Does being in Toronto, like with the current political climate, lower his chances?
It doesn't have a lot to do with the current political climate. Bain does sponsor visas, but yeah, I mean, it just lowers your chances if you're an international student because if I have qualified American nationals and I have internationals, and I'm looking for a snap bid and somebody who can start right away, like that process is just easier for somebody who's local. It has nothing to do with the political climate. It's just that's kind of a universal truth. But it's still worth applying. And then, if these kind of snap bids don't turn out for y'all, and there's something that you learned in the session today, and you've already applied, like come back to us, and Katie can walk with you through a strategy to work on building your profile and working with firms, maybe even starting in an international office and then moving to the U.S. as well.
All right, we've had a couple of questions around the gorilla test. Does the test rank people, or is it more like a cutoff for bad performers? And like definitely the latter there, right? It's cutting out the
Yep.
bottom like percentage.
It's a data point. It's a data point, and it's partially correlative. It's also just like, hey, how did you do in the interview? And like, did you also score well on the test? They're trying to figure out if the test is they're evaluating the test, not just evaluating you, right? So that's kind of why it's considered to be a data point. But I wouldn't sleep on it. Like you want to practice for it, and you need to go in and take it seriously. But like Japheth said, it's a data point. We can't speak entirely for Bain on this though, because they keep it as a black box on purpose.
Yep. All right. If you just applied to the Advantage program, can you still apply for this opportunity? From what we know about, no, Bain only allows you to be in one application process at a time. So until you find out about Advantage, you're out of luck.
Also, Advantage was really meant to be for people who are graduating next year. So if you applied to Advantage, and you don't want to do Advantage because you actually were trying to apply for the summer, I would email them. I would apply for this new job and email them that you are canceling your Advantage application because you're probably the wrong fit anyhow for Advantage. So like y'all need to just listen to what they say. They're really serious when they say like we want people that graduate next year. That's what they mean. So if you apply to the wrong thing, I'm kind of hoping to find a doorway, and it wasn't the right strategy in the first place.
Yeah, applying to the wrong role is a great way to get kicked out of the process.
Boom.
All right. If we buy an edit, can we upgrade it to black belt at a later difference and pay the difference at a later difference and at a later time and pay
100%.
the difference?
Yep, 100%.
Yes.
Yeah. So most people that buy black belt just buy it all outright. But actually we have, I think right now, we have this resume and cover letter edit process is kind of on fire, right, Japheth? So it's happening. And yeah, so do it, get in, and then you can upgrade to black belt to do the interviews. Absolutely happy to do that for you.
Cool. We've had some questions around examples of a Bain resume. We'll just send that out with the recording of this call. So we'll include a Microsoft Word doc that's our kind of best practice resume.
Yeah, it's just a template though for all MBBs. It's not just for Bain. So just so that y'all know. Our goal, like I'm a Bain person, so my goal is to be strategically wise / lazy. And so I want one resume that you can use across all firms. When we edit your resume, we don't edit more than one resume. We think that you should have one great resume. For cover letters, we also have the same cover letter and different paragraphs for individual firms. So there's only one paragraph that you swap out for those. Like be strategic so y'all can focus on what really matters, and tailoring your resume at the margins is not what makes the difference here.
Yep. All right, we'll do 2 more questions because we're at time.
Yeah.
If we apply and don't get an interview, what's the cool-off period? Jenny Ray?
It's up
Like,
to Bain. It could
how
be
much time?
like a day or 18 months. Honestly, like again, like they reserve the right to do exactly what they want to do here, but they usually say 12 to 18 months. So they'll usually say like, please don't apply. What they're saying is that like we feel like you need something else in order to be successful. So like let's not waste each other's time. McKinsey is a pretty solid like 12 months, but Bain can go up to 18. So yeah, I mean, I'm not saying don't apply. I'm just saying like if they tell you that you're not ready, you're probably not ready. You should go do something to change the game for you.
Yep.
If y'all want to do this for me before we sign off, why don't you just dump the rest of your questions into the chat that we haven't gotten a chance to answer? We only scheduled 30 minutes for this because we know it's kind of urgent and we want to get you what you need in a really short amount of time. But both, if you're interested in services and you didn't get your questions answered today, book with Katie. Just recognize like you may not be able to get on her calendar ASAP. So jump in if you need to jump in. We'd be happy to help you right away. And then we'll pull the questions from the chat and we can respond to those on our LinkedIn feed as well. And we can send some of those out with the recording too. I hope y'all enjoyed the session today. If you found it valuable, we always love knowing what you loved about it. It's super helpful for us as we continue to build more content. Bain is an amazing firm. I am eternally grateful that I had the opportunity to work there, that I was encouraged to apply. I want just to close the session today by saying, like, I think that if you think there's even a 1% chance of applying, you should do 100% of what you can do. It was a game-changing experience for me. I love the firm. I still love the firm. I don't speak on behalf of the firm anymore, but I speak to amplify what they do because I really believe in it as an opportunity. So I'm really excited that you joined us today. Thank you, everyone, for your time. Really grateful.
Now that you've got our playbook for how to set yourself up for success, check out our resume edits and our Black Belt program if you need some expert assistance in these roles, in these applications, and interview prep. We'd love to help. Links in the show notes to learn more about these edits, this Black Belt program, our coaching programs, and much more. Thanks for tuning in and good luck. Reach out if you need anything. Team@managementconsulted.com. We'd love to support you in your journey.